Welcome to OSH After the Bell podcast, where we bring you a fun and informative conversation about everything outside school hours care and give a voice to our fellow educators. So buckle up.
Hi everyone, welcome to OSH After the Bell podcast. My name is Saurubh. I'm joined with Barbi from Firefly HR and Casey, an assistant director, as our special guest. How are we feeling, Casey?
I'm really good, thank you. How are you guys?
I'm doing well. Barbi, how's things?
Great, thank you.
So this is our first ever episode, which is going to go on YouTube. So we all going to behave, as much as possible. And
As much as possible.
I didn't press recording in the previous recording, so we went for like 5-10 minutes. So we are going to ask the same questions again and pretend that this is the first time we're asking those questions. So, Casey, you're an assistant director as a special guest. People already know about me and Barbi to some extent, but this is the first time you're here with us. So this is your stage. I would love to know your role. You used to be a kindy coordinator at your OSH or OSH, and kindy for us would be preps in Brizzy in Queensland. I understand that you have a 400 capacity, like 400 license space for 400 kids, and 15 kindy rooms in your school. So that's a huge, big school, hey?
Yeah, it's huge, it's massive, but it's awesome. I love the challenge. Being kindy coordinator was such an awesome role. It was really kind of shaped me into what I am, I guess you could say. It's just kindy is next level. They're all 24/7 crazy, but it's so much fun, and watching them develop and grow is just really, really cool. So yeah, I love it. And now I'm assistant director, so I get to watch over the kindies as well as other year groups as well. So it's fun.
Yeah, and because in my knowledge, I'm not much aware of what kindy coordinator would do, because it's something, I guess, Barbi, there for larger schools with bigger capacities. Because from what I know is people who are perhaps kindy coordinators are those who want to work with preppies, I guess, rather than a designated role. So would you mind telling us a bit about what is kindy coordinating and how did that look like in your school?
Yeah. Me? Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, I thought you said Barbie. So
I thought you said me too, and then I'm like, but I didn't do that role.
Finger pointing at Casey.
So basically what it looks like is just a friendly face for the kids and for the parents as well. Someone that they can come to if they have questions, someone that they are used to every single day for the whole year. And just someone that they can trust and really build a relationship with. And I can see that their development and pass the message to and from the parents and the kids and everything like that. So it's just a really good familiar face for them.
You mentioned previously about rooms. Like, did you have like designated rooms for this thing to happen?
Yeah. So each year group has their own designated space. So we're split kindy 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6 are all together. So we are split quite a lot across the school, but kindy has their own room. We can accommodate for up to 60 is comfortable in the room. We have our own indoor, outdoor area with play equipment, and it's all fenced in. So it's really good for them to just feel safe and secure, and for the families as well.
So is it something which you all came together and thought, you know what, we need a kindy coordinator because we have so many kids coming in?
Yeah, I think we kind of split it down from just one big center a little bit at a time. And then we just thought we have enough staff. We have about 50 staff members. So, and there's, I think, 11 of us that are coordinators. So, or are high leadership roles. So yeah, we just thought everyone gets their own space, everyone gets their own kids and can really focus on those kids solely. So yeah, it's working out really well so far.
What do you think about this arrangement about everybody gets their own kids or rooms, or perhaps familiarity? I see a benefit of that, Barbi. So what do you think about that? Because your school was also large, but I'm not sure if you had different rooms for that.
No, it was always a dream of mine to have a space I could use just for kindergarten. And it wasn't even a space thing. in regards to space square per meters regulation wise. It was more just so they could slowly transition in if they needed to, because everyone's different. Some needed a bit more time. Some were running around with everyone else trying to play dodgeball, like already on the first day. You just had such a different range of kids of where they're at. I know myself, I'm more of a shy introvert, so I'd probably be that kid that just want to stay in the room and be like, nah, I'm not going out there. And Casey said something really important too. It's basically everything I wrote down. So I've got a 14-month-old now. Haley's started daycare last year, and I know working in the industry, you'd think you'd look up everything else, like the ratings or want to know their policies and all that. I didn't care. All I wanted to know that she had the same carers and they were nice. That's it. Yeah. And then Casey mentioned like that development and all that, and they can build that relationship. That is all I cared about, and that's what I love seeing every day. I know we do all that other hard work, but going in with my parent lens, that's what I wanted to know. And I think for those kindergarten families, they probably felt a lot more secure and happy. And I don't know if you noticed any different in the children, how well they settled having just a kindergarten space. Did you notice that at all, Casey?
Yeah, for sure. I think especially because they were coming in every day with the same faces and the same, we actually also have pulled our casuals into different rooms as well. So there's a casual pool just in the kindergarten room as well. And they are the ones that are in there every day when they can be. And yeah, I think it's really, really beneficial for the kids, and they're really focusing really well, which is great.
So that means coming from a parent point of view, because Barbie, I don't have that perspective. The closest to parenting I get is my Chihuahua. So when I drop him off at a friend's house, I can see that I would like certain people to look after, right? So I would have never thought about this, but when you said that this familiarity was so crucial for you as well, Barbie, like that never crossed my mind. But you mentioned, why do you think this familiarity is important? Is it something to do with separation anxiety? Or is it the kid's separation anxiety or the parent's separation anxiety?
I actually got a quote on this. It popped up in one of the USH groups. Someone's shared it January 16th about separation anxiety, and the quote's from a psychiatrist, and it says, when being left in the care of others at childcare or school, more important than engaging an upset child in an activity is the need for them to connect and feel safe with the new person providing care. So that's where that important relationship building, I think, makes a big difference.
Yeah, but for sure.
Many times it seems that we have this focus on activities, we're planning activities, but this is going back to security, as you mentioned. Sorry, what word did you use? Because I don't want to misquote that thing. It mentioned, what is the need? Feel safe, did you say?
Which one?
The need, the quotation you read, something about...
is the need for them to connect and feel safe.
Feel safe and connect, yeah. And that's very much similar to the attachment theory, which the first S of attachment theory is security, to feel secure. And that's so in your experience, Casey, do you feel that children also respond better given that they have their own space? Or do you have some children who want to like break that boundary and go to the different room because that room is just not that enough for them?
I mean, you get that more with the siblings. I think that the siblings are definitely the ones that want to venture off to the other rooms to play with the big kids because they know that that's what they can do at home. So in that sense, I think it's mainly just the siblings. But other than that, I think that they feel great in their own space, and they feel definitely safe because there's no big kids around them trying to take over or trample them or that kind of thing. So, yeah.
How do you kind of facilitate, or if you haven't yet, but that could be a challenge then. So do you see a value in facilitating multi-age play? Like, is it at the beginning, maybe they're together and then there are some group activities? Like, is there anything which you guys do at this stage or may do in the future?
Yeah, well, we definitely used to do multi-age play, and I do see benefits from it, but we did see most of our incidents occur when there were multiple kids from different age groups. We definitely, in the mornings, during COVID, when the numbers were low, we had a lot of the kids grouped together. So year 1 and year 2 were grouped together, and then year 3 to 6 were grouped together in the mornings as well. So it was good to see them, and they loved kind of being with each other, but they are also loving their own space, and there are so many of them that it doesn't feel like they're segregated. They are all together. So
maybe that's an important distinction, isn't it, Bobby, that because there's so many of them, they don't feel segregated.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you start doing these group things and you only have 60 kids to begin with, but then you have 5 kids in this room and 7 kids in this room, and you think, but they can't talk to each other. I'm like, what's going on? But maybe because you have 60 of them, it's and
they are all separated as well at school, because there's so many kinder classes. So they don't really get to see many of each other anyway. They all get to see each other at OSH. So
yeah. And do you feel that it's much easier to do programming and programming cycle, given that you know what you can expect from them?
Yeah, for sure. And we are trying a new programming cycle as well. This year, we kind of want to simplify it a little bit more and try and program it for K to 2 and then 3 to 6, and develop it according to the age groups as well, to see how that goes, see whether we can develop the kindies in a more creative way or a more developmental way quicker. See if that works. They can build up to like a year 2 program. But yeah, that's just all testing in term 1 to see how we go with the new kids, but hopefully it works out.
I think the most important thing too, you've said a few, like you're going to see how it goes, and you mentioned before you had a few injuries with the multi-age play, so that's basically risk assessing it. And then at the moment, this is what best suits your service, because I know there's some people that are like, oh no, we have to have all multi-age play, but it's different circumstances, different centers, risk assess. This is what suits your children. I know with us, it would have changed. One year you would have a very settled bunch of kindergarten kids, and it was kind of like, what new kindies? Like, they've all been here for ages. And then we had that a couple of years in a row, and then suddenly we were hit with a kindy grade that I've never had before like this, where there was so many kids that just were not ready for school at all. And we weren't prepared for that very well for when they started, or orientation or anything like that. I do know our orientation procedures changed immensely after that, because we thought we did enough, but then we realized when we were presented with this bunch of kids that just wanted to run out of the school, didn't want to come to after school care, would go hide in the slide, and there'll be 2 teachers trying to get this kid out from either end. Just anything and everything. Like, it was basically, it was a lot of fun. No, but still, it makes you reflect on what you're doing, and then to know that just because you do it one year, you can always change the next, and you can learn and you can adapt and grow from that.
Yeah, exactly.
So what, like when they're in kindy or preps, let's say for Brisbaneites, when they go to year 1, have you seen a difference in their behavior, perhaps the way they perceive the space, because they were neither in the school, from what I'm hearing, neither in the school or at OSH, that they had this exposure towards other areas, let's say, or with other people. How does that year 1 work for them?
Term 1's always a trial. Term 1's always just try and get them in the new routines, and definitely focusing a lot on routines and trying to nail that down in the first term. But they do play in other spaces during the year. Like, everyone plays in all the spaces. There might be a time when the year 4, 5s and 6s need our main building, so we'll switch them up, and no one's stuck where they are. So we really do just try and focus on transitions throughout the year as well. And vacation care, they're all mixed in the mornings, and then they split in the afternoons. So yeah,
and
everyone's
that's an important
moving
distinction
around.
again, isn't it? Like you used a really good word. They're not stuck in one place. It's not that they have to come there and be there. They are transitioning, so they are utilizing the space. Just multi-age is not happening, but they're utilizing the space. But in vacation care, it seems that in the morning they all are together. And then you divide them by groups, because there's a lot of research, or perhaps a chain of thought where people believe that multi-age should always happen, and perhaps there are pros and cons of each one of them. But today, since you are with us, I really want to expand and explore more on how can this concentrated group of year ones or preps, sorry, in this case, kindy, what sort of things do you do? Like, I mean, because it's the strategies you do so that they can transit to school better, right? So where they come from childcare to school, what sort of things that you have done or you have found very useful for those who are listening to this podcast?
Yeah. So from the get-go, we do an orientation night. Obviously we can't this year because COVID and we can't have parents on site. So I am chatting with some of the other educators to see what we can do for this year. I don't know whether I want to film a video, do a Zoom meeting. I haven't figured it out yet, but I think it's important to have an orientation for the kids and for the parents that have all the burning questions. And then once the kids come, I just think it's really important to have a calm environment. I always love having music in the background. I hate silence. So when I get in the morning, I plug my speaker on, turn it on, have some calming music, and just make it an inviting place for them to come, especially the new kids that are arriving and have that separation anxiety from their parents. I think getting on their level, having that calming voice and welcoming them into the centre is what's most important. And that also is great for the parents to see, especially having that familiar face from myself and the other educators that are there, knowing that we are going to be there every day. So yeah, I think that they're the main things that we do, and just be calm, I guess, be happy.
It's interesting you mentioned, and because you mentioned a couple of times about familiar faces, and that's Barbie also pointed that out. I think in childcare, that's what they are used to. And in after school care, they're not.
Yeah,
So,
there's a big transition change, and
yeah.
I find it's the parents. The kids are probably more fine than parents that are a bit shocked in how different it is. Like, they're going to school. There's not those big gates at every school, like in really small enclosed settings. And only, it depends on your childcare, but usually they're under 100 to 50, and then suddenly you're in these giant places with, in your case, thousands of kids.
I know.
Yeah, you talked about this space environment. Even the bubblers, the height of the bubblers, or the bag racks.
Yeah.
And the preppies can't put it, so they just put it somewhere else. Preppies or kindies in this case.
And that's a really good point. I remember at one point I had a boy just kind of not sulking but upset in the corner, and it may have been week 3 already for him. He was upset because he didn't know how to use the bubblers and no one had shown him. So there's these little things that we forget. We all know. We're all used to, the other kids know. But if a kid hasn't used it before, because I don't think there's any bubblers in my daughter's daycare, so when she goes to school, she would have no idea what it is. It's just all those little things of being, I find, extra mindful in the moment. Like, one kindy may know how to use it, but does that kindy know how to do it? Do they know, like you mentioned, the bag hooks? Like, half our hooks were too high. You got some kids that love the challenge of trying to get it there, and then some other kids that were just so unsure about, what do I do? With my bag.
So I think that's why this is a good place. This is a good setting, if you can, to have this consistent staff members, because the challenges of these particular kids. Just because at this age they need the most care. It seems like it. Yeah,
and you may not have the luxury of what Casey has of your own space. So because everyone at my centre arrived at the one place, we have one door, they all come in there, all 7 grades. But what I would do, especially for the first 6 weeks, and then I'd reassess to see how kindy are settling, I'd have staff rostered on kindy helper, I used to call it, every morning and afternoon. And it was a group of the team that wanted to do that. It used to be 3 core people that loved doing that and loved like greeting parents, helping them settle, helping the kids settle. I found that made a huge difference to how, because often they'd want to talk to me as the director, but you're also doing A, B, C, and D. So having these other people to talk to, I felt made them feel a lot more comfortable. It felt weird for me because I was used to always being the relationship builder, but it was very nice handing that role over to other people that were comfortable. And because they weren't rushed doing A, B, C, and D, they were very calm. I didn't give them any other tasks in that time. They were great staff. So if it was quiet, they would do something else. But usually it was just settling those children, playing a game with them, showing them around, showing them how to use the bubblers. Like, they just genuinely had that time to do those extra things with them. Showing parents how to sign in and out, because they don't. So as well, just getting that in their mindset, how important it is.
I think I just realized something. It's also a transition for parents too.
Yeah, I wrote this
Massive.
down. And for the staff, so you may have staff, even if they've always worked with kindy, when you get to the new year, they may forget how little they are, how little they know. Their expectations may be a bit too high sometimes. And it's almost like you need a reminder for the staff to be like, they're brand new, some are only 4.
They're babies.
Yeah.
Some, they are only 4 years old, some of them.
Yeah.
And Casey, knowing that you have had for a while now a designated space, let's say, for kindies or preps, have you all consciously made some changes in the environment so that the transition is much easier for them? And what would they be?
Yeah. So, well, in terms of transition, I think we've made it more of a simple environment. We definitely have just simplified all of our areas, everything like that. We have a nice quiet corner with kids' books that they can read, and a couch, and they can just sit down, and because it is quite overwhelming for them. So I think for them to have their own really quiet space, that if they are feeling overwhelmed with the equipment and everything outside, they can duck off inside, sit in their little quiet corner. We've got fairy lights and comfy cushions and everything. So I think that's a good environment to have for them. But yeah,
these fairy lights go a long way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our whole TV
Like, I'm
room
just thinking,
ceiling is just fairy lights.
They just go a long way. I remember seeing fairy lights at your service, Barbi.
Yeah, and I think, Casey, did you see them when you came to visit?
And then we copied you.
And then
that's what happened. Okay.
And the reason is because it's so I'm under, what do you call these things? The big lights. The big lights are just lots of unnatural light. It's not, I guess studies show isn't really great for kids. And I guess if they're in it all day, and there's only so much sunlight we could get. So we didn't want to turn off the lights because there wasn't enough sunlight inside, but we found the fairy lights helped calm behavior in that space, because we were kind of looking to change the energy in the room. Because our kids love to run, but it'd be great if they ran outside, just because we don't have much inside space. So it did help a lot with that, I have to admit. Yeah, for
sure. Mentioned, that's a very important point you mentioned about the behavioral changes, or in transitioning you need fairy lights, and this is just one of the things you do. And I'm imagining that you have like the areas you mentioned, smaller couches, and it's not like the big one where they have to like climb over each other to get there. But so you are making some physical changes there, and you mentioned that you do that so they don't get overwhelmed. Now, just so that we are clear, the overwhelming part, how I understand, is that they go to school, which they never used to go to. And then from school, they're coming back to after school care. So this is the overwhelming you were mentioning, Casey?
Yeah, I think so. I think they are used to being at home with mum and dad, going to childcare, going home with mum and dad. But instead now they're coming to us, then going to school, then coming back to us, and then going home. So it's a lot of back and forth for them, I guess, and they need to be in an environment that they're comfortable in and that they're used to. So I think that's why it's important to make a good environment for them.
Maybe that's why it was easier for you as well, Barbi, because they all came through one door. So that you knew that, the children knew that we go to that door after school hours. But in your case, they have a designated space, so they come out of that space and they go back to that space, which is amazing. That's a really good thing, because just imagining me being a child, I remember being lost and not sure where I'm going, because we didn't have after school care in India. So my dad would come and pick me up, and he would tell me to be at a certain spot so that my sister and I can be picked up. And then I would forget what he said, or did he say it yesterday, or did he say it today? I don't remember that. I never remembered that. And I would usually follow my sister, and we are twins, so she didn't she was as old as I am. So sometimes she forgot. And I used to get into trouble because my dad say, "I told you here." I'm like, I don't know. I thought you told me that. So it's good to know that, given that I was overwhelmed, that means I must have been I must have not known or must have not remembered, except, well, as my dad says, I must not be listening. That could be true too. So, but in this case, they have a safe place to go where they have fairy lights and whatnot, and they come back, and that's just calming down the. So for listening to all of this, it seems that, what about all the schools which do not have this facility? It doesn't mean that the kids are not getting overwhelmed. They're still getting overwhelmed there too.
Yeah, I think there's other ways to do it, and I have, like, I'm going to repeat this a lot, but I guess having Hayley now, and because she gets overwhelmed pretty quickly, but what calms her down, we were out at some friends last week, and there's not much I can do there, but what calmed her down was walking her over to a tree and just playing with a leaf, and then looking at a bird. And then she was refreshed.
Distractions.
Like, yeah, like, and a nature distractions. And I have to admit, thinking about the young kids, it still seemed to be the same when I was at work. Nature distractions tend to work very well. Because you might be in a hall and it's really hard. Even those little pop-up tents, teepees look great, but they fall over all the time. Have you got one that stays up though? I haven't seen one that stays up.
Collapsed in the bathroom.
So that's why I recommend the little pop-up tents. That's what we've got too for our daughter, because it's her space to go in when she wants that little time, and she throws around some Bluey's toys. But the same with kindies, they could always go in there and read or have their space. Sometimes it's the colours and the stuff around us that gets too much. What we've got there. And then I guess, I don't know if you guys remember even starting like a new job or doing something new, and like you get kind of anxious about it. It'll be the same for the little ones, and sometimes they might not show it on the first day. I was reading something before about a doctor that does stuff on all this, and he was saying that sometimes it can compound, so they might seem fine, and then suddenly in week 2 they lose it. So it's, I feel like I went off tangent there, but to be mindful.
Environment does play a huge role.
Yeah, to be mindful on that. Like, it could be they're just quiet. Then maybe just processing it all, and it's not all settling for them, because there's so much to learn and take in.
That's so true. I remember from last year, we had a little girl and she was fine. She was totally fine. She had no issues coming to OSH, nothing like that. And I'm pretty sure it was week 3. And all of a sudden she cried every time she had to come, or every time she had to leave her mum. She was calling for her mum back, and she never had any issues with OSH. She never said she didn't like it. She loved the kids that were there. She had friends, but all of a sudden it was just too much for her. So it's just be mindful of those kids as well, and to kind of make sure that doesn't happen, make them comfortable enough that doesn't happen.
Yeah. What did you do when that did happen?
It was hard. I haven't had that before. So it was definitely hard to not know what she wanted. I think getting the parents for the first few times just to stay back for 10 minutes, to be with them in the environment, so that the kids can feel that it's comfortable for the parent to be here. So it must be comfortable for them as well. But then once it got to the point where it was a few days or a week or so later, it was just, okay, mum has to go now. You're coming to OSH. Let's go inside. Let's distract you with something. Let's get you involved in some sort of program, and see how that went. And that eventually worked. I think it was only a week or so that she was unsettled, and then she was good.
Barbie mentioned something about environment, and people are also part of the environment. So the staff members, because Casey, you mentioned earlier how you already do some strategies, such as, going to their level, and that you have consistent staff. Now that forms the majority of the environment, because environment keeps changing, because you will change things around to do some activities perhaps, but because of your consistency in staff and their approach, or the way they approach children, is what seems to be working in your favor for children to have an overwhelming experience, but then the environment shifts everything, because it's an environment. And we've done a lot of research, such as people say, we'll use environment as a third teacher, or they talk about. But in particular to us, it's Vygotsky's social-cultural theory, where the society and the culture shapes our identity. So in this case, the society would be you, and the culture is set up by the thing which is consistent in your culture is that you have children of the same age group. And that's why the culture is kind of predictable to some extent. It's predictable culture. So you kind of create the culture you want, and then use the environment for your benefit. So that's really important to identify the importance of environment. And I think I interrupted Barbie when she was going to say something really important.
Oh, my memory is shocking at the moment. I think I remember. It has nothing to do with what you're talking about, but it was so it's only probably the last 6 months that I've been, because I'm still reading a lot on this area, anything English, about the transitions with the families. So I know I used to just let parents go. There wasn't actually a very good goodbye there, and I've learned that that's not the best way to do it. It's actually better to have a proper goodbye, not a big long hour-long one, but a proper goodbye, wave goodbye, have a good day type of thing. So, because when you just disappear on your kid, I've been reading up on this for myself, I have to admit, and what to do with my own kid. It kind of leaves them worried. Whereas if you give them a good goodbye, and my daughter now waves goodbye when we leave, they're more happier in their environment, not like, oh, I'm suddenly left here. So I think that would be the same in our school hours care, and the amount, I know that's a practice I would change now, because parents also did just leave without saying anything to the kid. I would kind of encourage them to give them a goodbye, a wave, a hug, like reassuring them that it's an okay place to be, smiles and everything like that.
Yeah, it's definitely beneficial.
That again creates the environment, isn't it? I mean, you go to a place and it's the same place but different staff, and you just like going to that place more because now the staff are different. And talking about the staff, I just thought in OSH or OSH, I will say OSH because I like it. In OSH, we have had challenges, and one of the major challenges is staff members, the inconsistency among staff members, their availabilities. You mentioned something about casual pool. And now, and going back to the thing which you mentioned earlier, familiarity of faces. Have you had challenges in wanting to keep familiar faces there, but also not having their availabilities, or they change their jobs in the middle of the year? And how, if that happened, how did you guys deal with that? Casey?
Yeah, sorry. It was, I mean, for me, I don't do rostering, so I don't know the availability too much. But it is difficult to have a pool of casuals because they are all changing their availability 24/7. Sorry. But yeah, I think having the coordinators there and on a permanent contract as well is really important, because you have that consistency for at least 11 of us. So you know that there's always 11 of us available all the time, and then we have enough casuals most of the time to fill in the gaps. And
would you usually have the same casuals? So let's say if I'm one of your staff members and I worked at with Kindy yesterday and I'm available today as well, would you try to have me back in Kindy, given that?
Yes, cool. So we have our Kindy pool, and they work pool. We have our pool for each area.
Okay, now I'm with you. So you might have staff members there. Okay, cool.
And what I found helps is school starts end of January in New South Wales, but university doesn't tend to start till March. So even if it is university students that bond best with the kids, and like I said before, I kind of got the staff that wanted to do it, because you've got some staff that love older kids, young kids, or don't care. So I put more. So I found their availability was pretty wide open for the start of the year, and it made a big difference. And that's where I also had, I guess, my own pool of kindy people. Like I usually used to have a core of 3 because we were smaller. We're not 400 kids. And between them, at least one of them was always there, or I just worked out one was always there. One was a uni student, so was always available, and another was a permanent that worked every shift. But I still was conscious of providing consistency for the kindies, but also letting them get to know more people. So if I gave them the same person every shift, then suddenly what happens if that person's not there? So it was kind of like giving them the same core group of people to
I think our I think our kindy pool is about six educators.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, if there's a day that none of those educators are available, we always have people filling in, and everyone, because the kindy room is kind of our main building. It's where the staff sign in, sign out. So they're constantly seeing the faces of those staff members as well when they're coming and going, and they are getting used to them there, which is really good as well.
I think it's good. I think it gives them time to slowly explore staff as they're comfortable. Like if they want to move on and start talking to someone else, they can. But otherwise, they know they've got these people they're familiar with.
Yeah.
And
No, go on. I didn't want to interrupt.
I have no idea. You can go, Sarah.
I have a question. The thing is, my dog is interrupting me. Come here, all the way. No, he doesn't want to. So, so the thing is, in terms of staff members, most of the people do not have this space or perhaps resources to set up a kindy orientation. Kindy coordinating. They may not have 11 leaders, or they may not have the capacity to have 400 children. Most of the services, like small services, let's say in Brisbane, would be considered as under 60. So they may not have these resources or perhaps the knowledge on how to set up this. They may only get like 12 preps. But seeing the value of consistent environment, seeing a value of children being overwhelmed, and also understanding that if a staff member is available and has been working for kindy for the last 2 months, maybe he or she would start learning a lot about this particular cohort, because kids are different at different age groups. Yeah. So what can we recommend to them? Like, how can we, what can we do so that we can set it up even at a smaller places, not to necessarily, as we said, isolate or make them feel stuck, but what can be done, or should it be done?
I know with us, oh, sorry, Casey.
No, you go first.
one thing too, because I know, so I've worked in small and large services, and in small, you got a lot less staff, but something we did was invest in those first few weeks of staffing that extra staff member just for kindergarten, because we had risk assessed and identified that there was a strong need for that in those first few weeks of settling. And although it costs more and it's a hit to the budget, I think for the risk assessment side, it was a much bigger benefit. Like, it was well worth it. And so even if you don't have the staff, it could be something you could take to an approved provider of saying, like, we think this will be very beneficial. You can give them the reasons A, B, C, and D. I know for us, we didn't have a school with a high fence, and it didn't have a gate. Kids could just walk out. And we had an incident with a kinder child was walking out. So nothing happened with the child. But although that happened, it does give us more that risk assessment argument of this is why we need that particular person to focus. Even on those small days, that can still happen. So that's why that focus, I think, is important there. That's just on how to get an additional staff member side from my end. Sorry, I'll let Casey go.
Yeah, no, I was going to say exactly the same thing. I think definitely for at least the first 2 to 3 weeks, even more, I think it's really important to have that focus on just the kindies and building that relationship and the trust and everything there, and then they can get their creative freedom and everything like that.
And it's being proactive and preventative rather than reactive and waiting for something to happen. And I know there's probably people listening going, no, I can't do that. But if you weigh it up, like, it could be just mean one less pizza at a staff meeting, like over a couple of weeks, like just all these little things where you can get that elsewhere. I don't even, there's probably other ways around it too, just cutting other places to put in there, or just investing in there. Definitely makes a big difference. And then it'll help the rest of the year. I find if they've orientated well and they're settled well, you'll have a lot less issues with them for the rest of the year.
I coordinated for 10 years and I never thought about this idea.
I have to admit, it's when we started, like I said, we had a lot of great years. The kinder kids were so well adjusted. I think we had a fair few years, Casey mentioned before, when they're siblings, they settled quite well. We had a fair few years where it was the third sibling in a family and the other 2 kids were already with us. It was Basically, I think out of what we had about 60 kindy kids come to us over a week, and I think at least 40 of them were siblings. So, and that was common. And then one year it was just every kid that wasn't used to care, the oldest in their family, not used to going to a different environment. So it definitely made us change what we do. We gave tours. When I say we, I'm going to mention Callum. He was the one that took charge in this. He gave tours around the school skipping and he would skip the kids around the school, around the perimeter, to show that, because it's such a big school, it's not quite clear to them where they can and can't play. To them, they see a tree over there, why can't they go there?
Exactly.
Other people listening probably have this issue too. Although you've got your space in the school, you've still got those other families that lag behind in the school and they're playing over there, and the kindy kids see that and they want to go there too. We have swings that sit just outside our really low fence, and of course the kindy kids want to go play on those swings. So there's just lots of little things just help. I would. If I'm 4 in the swings, I was like, yep, I'm going there. So it's just helping them with that. Yeah, with that behavior. The skip around we did for a few weeks every afternoon. We'd get them just that little bit earlier from their classroom, so it wasn't a big rush at the door, and would mark them up there, but bring them in still and kind of serve them afternoon tea separately. We didn't used to do this. Again, it was a risk assessment because they used to all be together for afternoon tea. And what we did, we let them have their own space on a deck to eat and play, but they could also go mingle with the other kids if they wanted to, but the other kids couldn't come to their space just in that eating time. So it meant the ones that wanted to just stay there could, and then they could break out to the others if they wanted to.
So in a nutshell, we should do something about giving that space, which I should have listened to this podcast 8 years ago.
Yeah, and you've both been to my space, and I know we had 2 large rooms, or 1 large room, 1 little room. It took us a while to think this through, how we were going to do it. We trialed and errored of what would work, because we're also in the main part of the school where all the families huddle after school, so we couldn't use an outdoor space.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I remember that.
So it was just, and then we realized we've got a little deck, we could try this. This might work. And we only kept them out there probably for 10-15 minutes, but it was enough to calm a lot more than what it had been. Like, it's kind of like that baby steps, that quality improvement, like just put it all in the quality improvement plan and all that. And adapting as you go. And then like the next year you may have a lot calmer kindies and they may need less of a transition. And I think, Casey, you mentioned it too. I said we'd put an extra staff member on for the first 2 to 3 weeks, then see how it goes. It wasn't a cut clear 2 weeks, then they're off. And you mentioned the same thing. It was depending how they settled, because they're all different.
Yeah, for sure.
So I guess, so for those, because I'm very conscious of those who do not have space even, or resources. And I think just being conscious of that might help you as well a bit. Just knowing that, okay, we don't have the space or the resources or things like that, which at your school seems to be available, that just being conscious can still help. Okay, we've got 15 kids who are brand new. We don't have a consistent staff, let's say, but what can be done from the month of January to maybe April, or February to April? What can be done? It deserves some sort of talk. It deserves some sort of energy. There has to be an agenda in the staff meeting about new preps and what can be done. Now, not everything which we've talked about is possible for everyone, but there has to be something. It's like, so why I'm saying this is my ex-staff, or maybe I'm the ex-coordinator, so they're still working there. So they are not the ex-staff, I'm the ex-staff. So they listen to the podcast, and I don't know if I paid attention. I just thought, same kids, let's do multi-age, and I just kept going and then kept improvising. And sometimes there were issues, sometimes, but I'm sure that they might have done something behind my back, like, start paying attention. We need to do something to keep these things working. So I'm sure that they did it. But if you ask me, so what's a new thing, or what's a thing that you can go back to? Not necessarily that you have to bring everything, one thing new every year, but what one thing that you can go back to every year so that you have provided that space for them. I don't think that I consciously did anything. So, and I had 120 kids. No, I had 90. So I'm like reflecting, like thinking, oh, I should have listened to this podcast.
I was about to say it's reflecting. And Saurubh, I do this all the time with all our podcasts. I say things and I'm like, oh my gosh, I should have done that. It happens all the time. And because I'm not in a center anymore, I actually have more time to research, and the things I'm coming up with, I'm like, oh, I didn't tell my team that this, like, there's just so many things. Like, oh, no, honestly, it happens all the time. Like, oh man.
So therefore, this is research and development is so important, and it's usually done by the people who have a little bit of experience, and then they go and do some research. So I hope that people who listen to this is not that we just know everything and we've done everything. I think we're learning right now that how much for this instance, definitely what's happening at your school is beautiful. And to be honest, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I would have dismissed that thought by saying, no, multi-age is important, keep doing multi-age. But what I would have not paid attention to is, like, even if multi-age is important and nobody's denying that, perhaps for the first few months, it's important that they get that attention of familiarity. In separation anxiety. We looked at attachment theory as well, the safety which the kids need to feel. And I didn't connect my own overwhelming experience of forgetting where I'm supposed to go. When my parents, when my dad especially said, stay here or be here at this time. So I think there's a huge value in having a designated space, or at least a conscious efforts being put for children who are transitioning. So Casey, anything else you would like to add? That's something that you've learned from this transitioning, because I'm learning that I didn't know a lot. Any challenges you have had, or things you would like to add?
No, I just think that it's a lot about reflecting and kind of doing something. You might make a mistake, learn from it, change it, risk assess on it, make it better. You know what I mean? It's all learning, developing, and then go back the next year and try and do it better.
I'm struggling with my dog still. Therefore I keep going. So here he is. He's been wanting to come up for a while. So I like that it's a trial and error, but at least you are trying. I didn't even try because I didn't.
You know what? Though, Saurubh, that might mean you didn't have any incidents or anything. Like, I had a few things happen where I had to consciously think about the processes and practices we had in place.
Yeah, see, when I think about incidents, and I would have again dismissed it. See, if I go back to being this arrogant personality, which was convinced that his ways are perfect. And then I would have, if somebody had said to me that, hey, look, that incident happened yesterday, blah, blah happened, I would have said, no, that happened because of this, this, and this. It didn't happen because of age group. Look at the other 90 kids who are playing properly. This one kid, he did that, he must be with the child. Like, but totally. So therefore, when I'm consulting, I'm not saying that these are the lessons I've learned since I was in my own days, the mistakes I made, and I can see those mistakes, or not mistakes perhaps, but it's like more like lack of knowledge in some terms. So I would have dismissed it. I was not only that I was blind; it was in my blind spot. I wasn't curious enough to go and explore either. So I hope that when people listen to this podcast, even if they disagree with us, perhaps it's just a different perspective. I'm not saying it's true. And for many, you might disagree with what's going on at the moment, but yeah, good on you for trialing and erring. And also I would like to acknowledge your coordinator who have 11 leaders. And I'm just thinking, 11 leaders? Great job. I mean, that's a tough job. Rostering, who rosters 50 staff? I mean, we should have a podcast on rostering 50 staff. I was sick of doing it with 5.
I know. It's crazy. It's really good. It's really valuable having that many, and we're very lucky that we have that many committed staff members to be able to have a good leadership team, and everyone's on the same page and just wants the best for the kids and the parents, and it's good.
And I'm looking forward to seeing your service very soon in February when I'm in Sydney. Barbie,
exciting.
any other reflection you have?
Yeah, we didn't touch on the school staff. So also that's an important one, I think, just to, I'll only go quick, build relationships with. I always found out, although our school wasn't always forward with it, who the kindy teachers would be. There's usually a head teacher, kindy coordinator for the school as well. Every school's different of what they had. It was helpful when it was the same one who I had a great relationship with, and we worked really well together in making sure I was involved with anything the school did with the kindy kids. Before I left too, it was because it's almost like we were very separate from the school, and over my 10 years I was just like getting closer and closer and closer and closer to being allowed to do more with the school. And it was at the point where the orientation we weren't allowed to go, to then being allowed to have a table on the far side of the outside in the freezing cold, to slowly moving closer to the inside, and then we were allowed inside. It was like just baby steps each year. And then I was allowed to talk on stage and stuff like that. It makes a huge difference, I think, to the kiddie families coming in. So even if you don't have that relationship with your school staff now, it's not an us and them. I think it's just them getting used to it. So me kind of pestering them every year kind of got them more used to, oh, okay, Ush want to be involved. Okay, Barbie wants to talk. Okay, Barbie wants to be on the whole school tour, which we got involved with in the end. And it made I think it helped a lot with families feeling more comfortable. They could see the space before they started and could understand it wasn't like daycare by looking at it. I liked being upfront and giving them that to start with, so they didn't have false pretenses. I remember one kindy year, a mum came in, really lovely parents too, came up really upset because she didn't want her kindy girl playing outside. She just thought kindy kids shouldn't play outside. And we don't have that rule, but in her mindset, she just thought that's how it should be. So I've learned to kind of give them that information early on to let them know we do tree climbing, we do risky play. Since we started letting them know that before they joined, I haven't had a single parent say no, but when they didn't find out until the child was there, we did have issues with parents being... which is weird. Like there's no difference really between the activity. No. It's just that knowledge. And it's same with me now as a parent. Even though I know the industry, I want to know everything. I want to know. Actually, the one reflection I have here is the menu. I never shared the menu with the families. I always shared it with the kids, and it was on display in the centre for everyone to see. But now as a parent, I really want to know what they're eating, and I have no idea why. It doesn't matter, but I really want to know what they're eating. And I've reflected on this since, going, oh, I should have shared that weekly, just popped it up on our Facebook group for families to know what we're eating.
We do that.
You might be one of those mums who would ask so many questions to me every now and then. Like, oh, come on, just it's there. Oh, I can't do it. Like, just there on the door, go.
No, so I know what it's like. So I don't ask the childcare that, but I have them all in my head. And I'm like, if I have them all in my head, and I've worked in the industry, what are other parents thinking too?
Maybe because you've worked in the industry that you have these questions. Some parents are like, they just ate food. And you're like, I prepare menu. What are they preparing in the menu? So you mentioned kindy coordinator in schools, and you also mentioned kindy coordinator in OSH and OSH. Or preps, let's say. It again seems to be valuable to have someone who can go and communicate with kindy coordinators of the school. If not today, then build a relationship towards that, because you have this familiar faces, familiar behavioral patterns, maybe inside, outside. And then parents also know that they can talk to these 2 or 3 individuals, especially concerned parents like Barbie would like to know who are those 3 people. So, I mean, every parent is concerned, but then you know what I mean. So I think that's a valuable thing for all of us to recognize here, that this designated conscious efforts towards a certain cohort is crucial. And I'm sure it's crucial for different ages as well, but this is a very interesting and important stage of their lives as they come to school. And that's the welcoming stage. People can change schools if they had bad experience in the first year. They never would love school ever. Maybe this is that, therefore we can't go and change the school, but we can always work on after school care and then have this. So that's my reflection. That's what I would like to take away. That so when I go to other my other schools, I would like to see what consciously they're doing in the beginning stages of the year to accommodate for their special needs. So Casey, how's the experience coming with us?
Really good. Awesome.
Really good.
It was so good to chat. It was good to get other perspectives, and it's great.
And Barbie and I usually reflect on these things after the session, and we may come up with a different, several questions after this. And if there is a chance, we might just, request you to come again, perhaps, and share with us how did this year go, and if there was any challenges you faced, or what might you be thinking next year in terms of accommodating these names,
We can
sure.
check in as well and see how she ended up going with the COVID orientation.
Please tell us that. How did the
I'll put it in the comments.
Yes, just please. It is also very important and valuable for all the listeners to because I want to acknowledge in front of the listeners that the time given by Casey is crucial, time and the knowledge. And although this seems like an hour podcast, but we sat here for 1.5 hours organizing things, and technology didn't work, and then I didn't press record, so that's not my fault. And then Barbie is right now sitting in a different office. Is it, Barbie? You rented a place, is it?
Yeah, I'm sitting on the floor. It's actually comfier.
Yeah, so Barbie's sitting on the floor, and because this is going on YouTube, you can see where she is. But this is also like I'm sitting at the comfort of my home, and but I can see. Say
something? We talk about environments. Your environment right now, Saurabh, is quite aesthetically pleasing. Like when we're thinking about kindies, like you've got your lamp, and it's a mellow lamp. It's not a bright lamp. You've got your plant. You've got your nature.
Yes.
Yep. But
what I also have behind the screen is 2 big white lights showing and that's not welcoming. But then I have this ring light on the right hand side, which is like yellowish. So it gives me that yellow tinge on my right side. So my eyes don't flicker. But yeah, these white lights are like, I'm not facing me. I've just put them aside. So, but it's important that these effort, like I want to acknowledge the efforts being put here, and I know that people also acknowledge the things we are doing together. And I hope that listening to this, people find this valuable and perhaps do something with the kindies. Thank you very much, Casey, for your time and all the knowledge and the stories you've shared with us. Barbie,
no problem at all.
Is there anything you want to add here?
No, just thank you to everyone for listening.
Thank you then. Thank you from Firefly HR and from We Belong Education, OSH After the Bell podcast. Look after yourself till the next time and the people you love. Goodbye from here. Bye.